Hey guys, Jeff here with Thrive Vans, coming at you from the Van Cave. And today I want to talk about plumbing. So a question I get asked a lot, we're on our 13th, 14th, and 15th builds. We've completed 12. And one question I get asked a lot is, what have you changed from your first van build to now? And there's a lot of things we do the same, but one of the big things that we've changed is the plumbing. And so I want to kind of talk through that and why we do what we do and how we do it. And so the first thing you'll notice is this whole plumbing system is set up and it's on the bench. And one thing we like to do with both our plumbing and electrical is bench test it. So we build the entire thing. We'll fill this tank with water, we'll pressurize it, and we'll let it sit overnight and make sure there's absolutely no leaks. That's you can do that if it's built right in the van, but if you have a leak, you're gonna have problems. Another thing that we've changed is that we use a product called PEX A. Now a lot of people will use PEX in van builds or in homes and other construction. There's several different kinds of connections. You can use the regular PEX with the crimp ring, which is I think it's a copper ring, and you use a tool to crimp it. You can use a clamp system, which goes on, and there's another tool, a special tool. You put the clamp on, you clamp it. There's the shark bite fittings, which just slide in and lock in. But then there's another kind of PEX that a lot of people don't know about, and that is PEX A, or PEX expansion. And so that's the kind that we use, and there's several reasons for it, but the number one reason is how easy it is to put everything together. So I want to show you that. Now for PEX A, or expansion PEX, you do need a special tool, and that's an expansion tool. DeWalt makes one. This one is made by Milwaukee. I absolutely love it. This is one of the best investments that I've made in van building. And so this tool costs about $200, and then you have to buy this mandrel for whatever size PEX you're doing. And we only do 1/2-inch PEX, and so I just have the one mandrel. And so you're about $250 into this thing. If you already have the Milwaukee, if you're already in that ecosystem of the M12, then you don't need to buy the batteries. You can buy the bare tool. Same thing with DeWalt. But honestly, $250 in a van build, this thing is gold. And if you're doing more than one van build, it's gonna pay for itself over and over again. And also, you're gonna save money on the fittings. The fittings, in most cases, are less expensive for the PEX A. So for example, this is an elbow for the PEX A. It's just a plastic piece. This is a T. I think these are, I think you can buy 10 of these for $12 or something like that. So they're a little over $1 a piece. If you were to buy the shark bite one with the fittings, they're about $8 or $10 each. And this uses a number of elbows, probably 10 or 12 elbows. So if you save, $8 on every one, there's $40 right there. So it adds up pretty quickly. So I would say that if you were to buy this tool for about $250, you're probably going to save $50 or $60 just on the parts, and then you're going to have this tool for the future. I've used this, home repairs. I'm helping my son finish his basement. I used it there. So I've had a lot of use outside of the van building, but it is really nice for van building too. So the first thing you need to do if you are using the PEX A is you make sure you buy the PEX A parts, and it'll say PEX A right on it. You can see that right there. And so this is, I've got everything put together. I just saved this one last fitting to do on the video. And so here's all you have to do is it requires the fitting. This is a female 1/2-inch adapter, and it requires one of these little expansion sleeves. And so all you do is you slide this over the end. I'm gonna attach this right here. All I have to do is slip this in, and then the nice thing about this is it's easy to get into tight spaces. Either the crimp tool or the one for the clamps, you gotta get it in, and sometimes in these tight spaces it's really hard to get in there and make a good crimp. So this is nice because you can get it in just about anywhere. So here's all you have to do is you put this, insert this, and I'm going to give it about 7 clicks. And then I'm just going to slide this in and that's it. So here we go. Let me get this over. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then all I do is pop that in. And in about a minute, that's going to be tight. You will not be able to pull it off. Another thing that I really like about these is that these expansion rings are made out of nylon. And if you need to get them off, you can just take a knife and just cut them and pop them off and redo the fitting. Because you're going to have times where you need to redo things, maybe different, that you cut it the wrong size or something like that. And with the crimp rings, you got to cut them off with like a Dremel, and with the shark bite, you can't get those off with a special tool that allows you to take those off. So the shark bite ones aren't bad. It just adds up to a lot of money when you're putting all those parts in. So now I just want to give you a little quick kind of overview of how our system works. One thing we do differently is we used to use just a regular water tank that we put up above the wheel well, and it sat up here, and then we put our parts down below. What we do now is we use an over the wheel well tank, and this is a 36-gallon tank, and I'll put links to everything I talk about in the description, but this is a 36-gallon tank that sits over the wheel well. So one thing that's really nice is, 36 gallons adds up to probably around 250 pounds once it's full. It lowers your center of gravity, which is really nice. And so then you can see everything is on top of it. We don't put any fittings in the bottom or sides of this. So the reason we do that is to prevent leaks. When you get all that water, the pressure pushing down on a fitting that's down on the bottom of the tank, it's very easy to develop a leak. In fact, we had one of our vans where I think our second or third van we did, where we used to put the fittings in the bottom and the tank was sitting up above, where the day of delivery, we had tested everything, but we filled it with water the night before and let it sit overnight. And the next morning we came in and there was just a little teeny leak in one of the fittings down on the bottom of the tank. And the customers were showing up in like an hour, and we didn't have time to do anything. So when they got here, we had to tell them, hey, we're going to have to swap this thing out. So we ended up having to pull the panels off, everything out, take the tank out, redo the fitting because it was actually where it was threaded in was leaking, and then put it all back together. And so we had to send the customer away for about 4 hours and have them come back to pick their van up because we had this leak. So this is something that I learned from George over on Humble Road, is to put all the fittings in the top. And I actually love this system. So right here is our water fill. This is, if you're looking at the tank, this is the back of the van, this is the front of the van. It's on the driver's side. So we use this tubing. It's an flexible RV hose for our drain lines and our fill lines. You don't want to use this for pressurized lines, but this will go right over this fitting. It'll slide over with a clamp on it, and then it'll come right up here and connect to our water fill. So the water fill is right in the top, and the way that we do this is this tank has a fitting, a 1.5 inch fitting. So we just use a PVC bushing, a 1.5 by 3/4 inch that we screw into here, and this is the only port that these tanks have on top. But we screw into that one, and we'll hook that in there just with a 3/4 inch nylon barb fitting there, and so that'll fit onto there. The next one that we have on top is right here, and this is our take-up line for the water pump, and it comes in through the top. And what we use are these. They're called Uniseal, and they're made for the marine industry. They're made for water tanks and bulkheads where you need to have them watertight. And what happens is you drill a hole for this one. We use a 3/8 Uniseal fitting for the 1/2 inch tubing. And what happens is you drill a 1 inch hole, you insert this in, and then when you put the hose in, it actually pushes out and creates a watertight fitting around that thing. And so we slide that in, we put a little bit of dish soap right here, and we feed this hose down, and it's down into the bottom. Now, one thing with these pumps is, if you were to just put that hose down there to the bottom, and every time you would pump water, it would pump the water up through the system, and then when the pump shut off, the water would go back down and it would fill with air. And so every time you start your pump back up, you'd have to blow out that air, and then it would start picking up water. What we do is we put a check valve on the end of this tube, which does two things. It weights it down so that it keeps that tube down at the bottom of the tank, but it also only allows the water to flow this way and not this way. So once it picks up the water, and you shut off the pump, the water stays in the lines and it doesn't flow back out. So we do that 1/2 inch pickup line with a check valve on the end. And then you can't really see it very well, but right here is our tank sensor. We use the KUS water tank sensors, and we just put those into the top, and then we'll hook those into the Servo GX, and we'll be able to get readings on our tank level through that. And right here is where we have our manifold. So right here, the water comes up through the pump and then into this little manifold right here. And this is our cold water. And you always want to use nylon tubing coming in and out of the pump just for the vibration, because this thing's going to move. So you can see this can give a little bit. So you wouldn't want to hook solid pipe or even PEX really to these. It comes over here and you can see this manifold. Water comes in, and then it's going to feed these 3 ports. One of them, the middle one, is going to our hot water tank. This back one is going to our shower in the rear, and the front one is going to the sink. And so that gives us our cold water lines. And then our hot is going to come out the top, come into this T, and feed both our shower in the back and our sink in the front. Now, one thing I want to talk about is this water heater. So this is an IsoTemp 4-gallon water heater, 15-liter 4-gallon water heater. Now, a lot of people you'll see in van builds use the Bosch electric water heaters. They're not terrible, but here's a couple of drawbacks to those. So they're really not made for mobile applications. So although they will work over time, they could develop leaks, or just they're actually the inside of them is glass, and that can crack. Here's a big negative to those. There's no way to drain them. The only way you can drain them is either to take it out and dump it upside down, or insert some kind of a pump where you can pump the water out of it. But that water is in there and you can't get it out. There's no drain on the bottom. And then the other thing is, they pull a lot of amperage. They pull about 17 or 1800 watts. And so they'll deplete your battery faster, but also they just pull a lot. If you have a 3000 watt inverter, they're pulling more than half of your capacity of your inverter when you run your water heater. So it's difficult to run anything else that uses a lot of amperage, like your induction cooktop or your microwave, or a blow dryer, things like that. So those are the things I really don't like about the Bosch water heaters. The things I love about this are that they are made for a mobile application. They're a marine grade water heater. They're very well insulated. And so when you heat the water up, we've run tests where it's pretty hot after 24 hours, and it'll stay warm even longer than that, but it very well insulated. The other thing is you have this adjustment on the temperature, so you can adjust it. You can heat it all the way up to about 160, 170 degrees, which you have to be careful with that, because that's a dangerous temperature. But what it means is once this water's hot, it doesn't, when you're mixing it, like in your sink or your shower, you're mixing that water, and it doesn't have to use a lot of the hot water mixed with the cold to make it a comfortable temperature. So this 4 gallons will go a long way if you set it on the high temperature. You don't have to set it that high. You can turn it down to a lower temperature. But it does have that ability to heat it up really hot. On the bottom, you can see right here, it does have a drain. So we'll run one of these off of here and to the back, and out the bottom of the van. And that gives us the ability to drain the water heater, which is nice when you're winterizing the van, to be able to get that water out and put the antifreeze in. Now these ports right here are actually for antifreeze. You can actually connect this water heater to the antifreeze system in your van, run lines back here, and heat your water while you're driving. Now that's an awesome thing. We don't do it typically in a van that doesn't have an indoor shower because the demand for hot water just isn't high enough. You need a little water here and there when you're cooking or when you're using a shower, on the outside shower. We find that it's just not really worth it to do all that for just that simple application. But if you do have an indoor shower, that is something that's really nice, is that you can tap into that. The antifreeze from the vehicle just circulates through this and heats the water while you're driving, and then it'll keep it hot, like I said, for a day at least. And so you're going to have pretty much endless hot water without ever having to run your electrical system if you go with that application. Another thing about this water heater, so you just plug it in. We put a plug in just under the sink that this connects to, and it uses a lot less wattage or amperage than the Bosch water heaters. This pulls about 700 or 800 watts, so it's much lower, but because it's lower wattage and it's more water, it's 4 gallons where most people are using the 2.5 gallon Bosch water heaters. It does take longer to heat, so it takes about 25-30 minutes, where I found the Bosch water heaters take about 15 minutes to heat the water. And so it does take longer, so overall you're still going to use not quite as much. I find that you'll use about as much of your battery capacity to heat 4 gallons with this one than you will to heat 2.5 gallons with the Bosch. So similar, but you're getting more hot water and it's going to stay hot longer. One tip I always give people is run your hot water heater while you're driving. Because it's going to stay hot, during the day, just flip that thing on, let the alternator do the work of heating the water. And then when you get to your destination, you just turn your water heater and that water is going to be hot. And if you do need to warm it back up, just, it's going to be warm at least. And just to heat it up a little bit more isn't going to take very long, maybe 10 minutes, and you'll be able to bring that back up to a nice temperature. Now we do all of our interior construction is out of the extruded aluminum. A lot of people just call it 80-20. We don't buy it from the company 80-20, we buy from a different company, and find that it's about 30 or 40% less than 80-20 and just as good. Awesome customer service. So I'll put a link in the description for the company that we use, and they will even cut it to length if you like them to do that for you. But one thing about the extruded aluminum construction is we can build this whole thing up here on the bench, and then we can just lift this thing into the van. And then all we'll do is we'll put a cover on this end and on the back end. The back will be exposed and the front end of it will be exposed, and you'll be able to see that through the kitchen galley. When you open the kitchen under the sink, you can actually see into this and check things. And then we'll put a door right here so you can get access into this part of it if you need to do something with the water pump or adjust the temperature or drain it or anything like that. So we find it gives great access. There's a debate on whether the extruded aluminum is lighter than wood. I'm here to say I've done both. I think the extruded aluminum is a lot lighter because all we're going to do is put panels where we need them, just this front and back. If you were doing it out of wood, you would need full construction on all the corners, and it would just, in order to make it solid and sturdy, you need more wood and thicker wood. We just put 1/2-inch panels on the two sides, and that's it. And so we find that we feel like it's lighter. But like I say, some people will argue that the wood construction is lighter because after you build this, then you've still got to put wood on it. But we use thinner wood and less wood when we call it skinning, when we skin the mechanical boxes. So really nice to be able to just mount everything right to the 80-20. Our water tank is mounted here. If we need to move it, slide it, we can. That's one thing I really love about this extruded aluminum construction, is just the ability to move things around and adjust. And now, real quick, I'll just mention winterizing. People always ask, how do I winterize the van? One thing that's really easy about the way that we do it is you can drain the water out of this water tank very easily just by turning this knob. Drain the water out of the hot water tank. And then we don't put a drain in the bottom of our water tank. In order to drain our water tanks, you just run your shower or your sink or both until the water runs out of it. That's how we do it. We just find that it avoids possible leakage by putting a drain fitting on the bottom. And so it's really easy. Just in a few minutes, you just pump the water out. These water pumps are made so that they can handle it running dry. They have a shut off if they overheat, and so it's safe to run them until they're dry, until you pump all the water out. And then there's two ways you can winterize it. Either you can take this off and attach a hose and put it into the antifreeze and just pump it directly into the pump and through the system, which is the way that we prefer to do it. You can also just pour your antifreeze right into the tank, and I'll show you in a minute where we can do that. If you pour it into the tank, you need to use a little bit more because you've got to get it up to a level where this tube can pick it up and then pump it through the system. And then when you go to flush your system out, you've got to fill this with water and run it until the antifreeze is flushed out. If you only run it through the pump and into the system, it's a lot easier to flush it out because all you do is just the antifreeze is only from the pump on, and it's easy to flush that out. So we prefer hooking it up to here, but it is easier just to dump the antifreeze right into the tank. So right here is where I was talking about if you want to dump anything into the tank, it's really easy. We put a inspection hatch, and this is again it's a deck hatch for boats or a marine hatch, and it's watertight, and this will just unscrew, and we use the 6-inch, and you can get into the tank. So it's really nice because if you want to pour the antifreeze in, you can just pour it right in. If your van's sitting for a while and you just want to make sure that the water stays no bacteria or anything grows in it, you can dump a little bit of bleach. About a half a cup of bleach to a full tank is a good ratio. You can just dump a little bleach in there, run it through your system, and that will keep the water clean and fresh. So we really love these inspection hatches. We put it here where you can access it through the sink. So if the sink is going to be right here, you can open the sink, reach in here, open this up, pour in your antifreeze, pour in your bleach, whatever you need, and then just close that back up, and it's watertight. You see right here, these PEX pipes coming out are to hook up to our sink. So hot and cold water for the sink, and then in the back we have the hot and cold for the shower. So it's really nice that once we install this, we put our sink in, all we got to do is attach the lines to here. You have shut-off valves on both ends, so we have shut-off valves at the sink, and we also have them back at the shower. So you can see right here are the ones for the shower, hot and cold. So we just have a 1/2-inch line here, and again we have shut-off valves so we can turn the water on and off if we need to. If you ever have it's nice to be able to isolate the sink and the shower, so if you ever did have a leak, you could turn one off. If there was a leak in the shower, you could shut it off and still be able to use your sink. Now this is the shower mixer that we use. It's made by Ambassador Marine. Again, it's a marine grade. We're really big on using marine grade, RV grade parts that are made to handle the vibration and the rigors of a van build. So this will just mount on the back of the box, and then you can see our hot and cold can just screw right into there, and then this will just fit in to that, and then you've got this just hooks in for your shower head. And so I've got another video on the Aqua fitting, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on those, but we really like them. We really like this setup. Makes it really simple and clean and easy. So on these water tanks that are used in vans, pretty much all of them have to be vented, because when you're filling the water, you need to have somewhere for the air escape to, and then as you're draining it, as you're using the water, you need air to be able to come back in. So we do put this little fitting right here on the side. This is just a little nylon elbow, and then we use this type. This is a 3/8 inch fitting. We use 3/8 inch hose. We'll attach this with a clamp, and then what we do is we just have it come up and then loop back down and out the bottom of the van. And the reason that we do it that way is so that if there is any water sloshing, it has to go up about 12 inches before, and then come back down. If you were just to run it out, down and out the bottom of the van, then every time you accelerate and water comes back, you're going to have water coming out the back. So by just having a little loop in it, you're going to avoid that. Unless you're on a really steep hill or really accelerating hard, you're not going to have water coming out. But so that's how we do the van. So anyway, that's kind of an overview of our plumbing system. Hopefully this helped. If you're doing your own van, we actually are building these. If you would like to purchase this system, we would build this for you. Local pickup in Utah. We're just a little bit south of Salt Lake City. Or we could crate it up and ship it to you. So if you're interested in one of these, reach out to us. We also, like I said, will have it linked in the description to all the parts we use if you want to build your own. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. It really helps us with the YouTube algorithm. And if you want to see more videos like this, then please subscribe. We'll be doing an overview like this of our electrical system coming up next. And we do it in a very similar way. Be able to build it all on the bench test it, and then just drop it into the van. And we will be offering those also if you'd like to have us build that out for you. These are, the electrical and the plumbing are probably the most intimidating part of a van build for people. So to be able to get it made and just drop it into your van and hook everything up is a really nice way to do it. So if you're interested in that, just let us know in the comments, or we have our email in the description below. Thanks for watching. Jeff with Thrive Vans. Thrive on. See ya. And so you'll have hot and cold hooked here, and then this line just hooks into the